All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Kelly Watson. I'm a floodplain planner with the Boulder County Community Planning and Permitting Department. Tonight, we are going to talk about the proposed new floodplain mapping on the middle portion of Lefthand Creek. So this new study covers the area between Gear Canyon and 49th Street. And I think a lot of people on the call have been following the floodplain mapping for a long time now. But I will briefly go over how we got here, and you'll hear from the study engineers on the new results, and we will go over what to expect next. I don't expect our presentation here to take the full hour, so we will have time for questions. However, if you have questions about your specific property or specific development proposals on your property, we can address those later in a one-on-one meeting, partly because this meeting is being recorded. And I don't want to have everyone's personal questions online, and also because we want to respect everyone's time here this evening. All right. Let's start by introducing all the various agencies and staff we have on the line today. Again, I'm Kelly Watson with Community Planning and Permitting at Boulder County. I think maybe Sarah is having trouble getting into the meeting, so I'm going to go ahead and ask Kevin to introduce yourself, and then we can go through the rest of the list.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. I'm Kevin Doyle with Michael Baker International. I'm a floodplain consultant for Boulder County.
Good evening. My name is Chris Gaines. I'm with FEMA Region 8.
Hi, I'm Laura Stanky, and I'm also with FEMA Region 8.
And I'm Jamie Prochnow, and I'm also with FEMA Region 8.
Good evening, everyone. My name is David Studley. I'm a water resources engineer supporting this restudy project on behalf of Region 8 as a part of their contracting team, also called Star 2. And with me, I'll let Kurt and Michaela introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Kurt Robler, also with Star 2, supporting the project as a water resources engineer.
Hi, I'm Michaela Zeitlin. I'm here supporting David and Kurt in the work that they're doing here, and I'll be taking some notes today. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marta Blanco Castano, and I'm the Flood Mapping Program Deputy at the Colorado Water Conservation Board with the state of Colorado.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We have some additional staff from the county on as well, and can get them. Awesome. I think we are good to go. Okay. All right. The goal of tonight's meeting is to bring all of our residents and the folks impacted by this new flood study up to date on the progress of the study. If you have questions or concerns, the next few months is the best time to raise them and get any technical comments incorporated into the study. The county's role in all of this is to collect comments and pass them on to the study engineers. And so, as I say, the next few months is the best and easiest time to do that. You can contact me at any time at this email address, floodplainadmin@bouldercounty.gov. My phone number will also be up at the end of the meeting if you don't have it already. If you have questions this evening, please use the Q&A feature. So you should be able to move your mouse or tap your screen and see the menu and then click the Q&A button, and that will send us your question, and we will answer those questions at the end of the presentation. All right, so how did we get here? So after the 2013 flood, the state of Colorado initiated the Colorado Hazard Mapping Program to address all of the changes to floodplains and rainfall history that came out of the 2013 flood. And the goal of that program was to ensure that communities and property owners were better informed of their flood risk and the flood hazards, and that they reflected the changes that happened in 2013. And I'm just going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. So Boulder County was one of many Colorado communities that participated in CHAMP, and most of the county's floodplains, including Lefthand Creek, were prioritized as part of the CHAMP study. The short version of the timeline is that starting in 2016 and 2017, the state provided the county with draft mapping, and the new mapping was based on both updated hydrology, so how much water was being expected in a 100-year flood event, and new topography and survey that had been collected after the 2013 flood. So they took those new data sources and modeled new floodplains, and starting in 2016, the county shared those draft floodplains with the public. We held over 20 public meetings, did extensive outreach, and collected hundreds of comments from the public. And those comments were incorporated in draft maps, and all of that was sent to FEMA for final review and incorporation into the flood insurance rate maps. The county also adopted the draft and preliminary versions of that CHAMP study over through hearings with the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. And ultimately, for all the stream reaches included in the CHAMP study, except for this one portion of Lefthand Creek, the FEMA and Boulder County floodplain maps changed at the end of last year, so October of 2024. So during FEMA's final appeal period in 2021, an appeal of the floodway designation on this portion of Lefthand Creek was submitted, and it ultimately went to a scientific resolution panel. And as a result of the panel's decision, FEMA is restudying Lefthand Creek between Gear Canyon and 49th Street. So this area was excluded from the last year's map update, and instead we have a new study. So I'm going to hand it over to David with Star 2 to explain how this new study is different from CHAMP and what some of the results are.
Thanks, Kelly. So this is a similar slide that we presented back in, I believe it was November, a year and a half, 2 years ago-ish. What was the date on that one again, Kelly?
November 2023, I think.
2023, that's correct. So the big part of our goals on the restudy was really to take the recommendations from the scientific resolution panel to develop the scope for our new study. And one of the big components of that new scope was to transition from the original one-dimensional hydraulic model into a two-dimensional hydraulic model to satisfy the recommendations of that scientific resolution panel, primarily to really gain a lot more precision and accuracy in the split flows that occur along this reach, specifically along Lefthand Creek, to better understand the flow patterns and how they impact structures in this reach from Gear Canyon to 49th Street. So some of the differences and benefits of going from 1D to 2D are up on the screen. A lot of the things that we like to think of as engineers is when going from 1D to 2D, it removes a lot of those engineering assumptions. So as an engineer, we don't have to make as many decisions that may be different depending on the engineer that does the study. So that, again, the results are more repeatable, more precise, and more accurate, and represent the best understanding of the conditions on the ground. So that was the goal of going from 1D to 2D for this new restudy along Lefthand Creek. Next slide. So really we're going to take a couple of slides to give an overview of the new data sets that were leveraged as a part of this restudy, because then that was also a big point of the recommendation in the SRP was really the type of data that going into it. So we wanted to bring in the best available topographic information, and we leveraged that from the Denver Regional Council of Governments, or DRCOG. That data was collected and made available in August of 2020. We also incorporated several other studies that had been done previously for specific LOMRs, or letter of map revisions, and pulled in the terrain and survey information that was used in those specific studies. One being a channel modification. Oops. There it goes. Channel modification in 2022. CDOT did a major project along US 36 in 2020. So that LOMR was leveraged and brought into this restudy, along with the existing survey cross sections that were part of the 2018 model in the one-dimensional sense. So that model and those cross sections were brought over and leveraged to enhance the underlying geometry of our two-dimensional hydraulic model for this restudy. Next one. And so after we leveraged all that terrain, we created what's called a mesh, or a representation of the land surface at a much finer resolution, using on average about 50-foot cells and 10-feet cells along Lefthand Creek. We brought in specific hydraulic structures from the 2018 model, survey data from 2017, and that CDOT information from 2018 and 2020. And another part of this scope was the floodway itself. So again, the big part of the SRP was really trying to understand how that floodway behaves with these significant split flows. So with this two-dimensional model, we now understand how those split flows behave and can encroach in those split areas to kind of create what we've done is kind of created 4 loops along these split flows as the water kind of gets diverted around specific terrain features in this restudy reach. Next slide. So I would encourage everyone to review the draft results. I believe this county has provided a draft viewer of this information for consumption of those impacted, to, again, encourage comments, questions, all of those getting routed through the county and the email that Kelly provided earlier in the presentation. But where we're going to go next is essentially a new preliminary map release for this specific reach, which will be one panel. So we'll produce a new preliminary or revised preliminary map for this specific reach. We will have a coordination and consultation officers meeting, CCO meeting. There will be a formal 90-day appeal period that is part of the due process of any new or updated map release. And then we will move forward to that letter of final determination. And then at that point, the maps have a 6-month period before they become effective for the communities to update the ordinances and move forward to their effective flood insurance rate map, which we're targeting around summer of 2027. And I'm not watching the Q&A, so if anybody has any Q&As in there, I'm not seeing them. So please, I don't think I see any questions at the moment. So
Yeah, none at this time, David. I'll
Okay.
keep an eye out.
Great. And then Kelly, just going to confirm I was accurate in saying that the draft map viewer has been provided out to folks for consumption.
Yes, so that should be folks got an email with the link, and it's also posted on the website, which we'll get to.
Excellent.
Alrighty. All right, so next steps for the county. So like I said earlier, right now is the best and easiest time to incorporate comments from all of you. My recommendation is to call or email me, and we'll set up a time to talk about what your concerns are. I've put July 30th on this slide as a tentative deadline just to keep things moving, but really anytime this summer, we can set up an appointment at the county office in Boulder. I've already done that with a couple folks. I think they found it really helpful to look at the maps together, talk about what we're seeing, and all of that. The type of comments that are most likely to have meaningfully or could meaningfully change the results of the study are things like additional or more detailed topography data or elevation data. So if that's something you have or can get and you think that that could impact the study, now would be a good time to talk about that and look into getting that. But feel free to bring me any other questions you have, and we'll try to get them answered as well. All right, so where can you find the results? As we said, the website, as always, is boco.org/floodplain remapping. If you scroll down to the Lefthand Creek section of that website, you'll see the link to this web map. Once you get to the web map, you can zoom in, see your property. You can click this map layers button to see the currently effective FEMA flood zones. I have to say, if you turn both the effective and the proposed on at the same time, the colors get a little confusing because they're both transparent. So maybe just do one at a time. But either way, if you, as always, if you have any problems or questions with the web map, email me and we'll make sure you're looking at the right stuff. All right, so as always with these flood study presentations, I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about flood insurance. And the reason is because I get questions about flood insurance. People want to know. Everyone in Boulder County can purchase flood insurance, whether or not you are in a floodplain. If you are in the FEMA 100-year floodplain, so that's a zone, or what FEMA calls the special flood hazard area. And if you have a federally backed mortgage, your lender will require you to maintain flood insurance. But technically, lenders can require flood insurance anywhere, even if your house is not in the floodplain. The premiums are based on the National Flood Insurance Program's pricing approach. And just last year, you can now get a quote online. So this is new. You used to have to go through talk to an agent to figure out what your premium might be. Now I believe you can go to floodsmart.gov and get a quote online like you can for any other type of insurance. So that's a new thing. That's kind of cool. All right, so the other main thing besides insurance that is impacted by floodplain maps is development regulations. So in Boulder County, requirements for development are found in the Boulder County Land Use Code, Article 4-400. And the requirements are different based on whether you're in the floodway or the flood fringe. So the flood fringe is that part of the 100-year floodplain that is outside the floodway. If you look at the map and your house is in the 500-year floodplain, The 500 year is not part of the county's floodplain overlay district, so that is just shown for additional information. As always, contact me if you have questions. I want to talk a little bit more about the floodway. The floodway is the portion of the 100-year floodplain that must be reserved for passage of the 100-year flood event. So if you imagine building and developing in the floodplain, a building here, some grading there, over time, the cumulative impacts of those blockages to floodwaters will increase the flood depths in the rest of the floodplain. So the floodway is the portion of the floodplain, the 100-year floodplain, where the model shows that cumulative development will increase water surface elevations over 1/2 foot, which is the floodway limit in Colorado. So in Boulder County, we do not allow construction of new buildings in the floodway. Other types of development, crossings, bridges, some types of grading, may be allowed in the floodway as long as an engineer can certify that the development will not increase base flood elevations. That's called a no-rise certification. In the flood fringe, pretty much all types of development are allowed with a floodplain development permit and appropriate flood protection measures. So for example, a new house in the flood fringe would have to be elevated 2 feet above that 100-year water surface elevation. All right, can the results be changed? As I've said several times, now's the time in the next few months to bring us your technical concerns about the mapping. As David mentioned, there will be an appeal period. The timing of that still to be announced, still to be determined. The one I want to focus on here is the LOMA, or letter of map amendment. So with this new mapping, base flood elevations might change for your property. And one of the sort of quickest and easiest ways to check on this is to have a surveyor come out, and basically they can either do a full elevation certificate or just measure the lowest adjacent grade of the structure. So that's where the foundation meets the ground. And if that lowest adjacent grade is above the water surface elevation, what's called the base flood elevation, you might be eligible for a LOMA, and the surveyor just submits that data straight to FEMA, and they can do it online, or you can submit your elevation certificate. And that's often the best way if you think that your house might actually be out of the floodplain, but the mapping just isn't detailed enough to capture that. That's the best way to get that determination made. All right, a few final thoughts. Where it rains, it floods. I just want to pause for a moment on this because I say it in every presentation about flood studies that I've done in the past 5 years or so. And what we're talking about here with this flood study is it can get really technical, and for good reason. If you're on one side of a line, you are subject to certain regulations, and if you're on the other side, you're not. But all the property owners and folks on this call, everyone listening to this meeting does have some level of flood risk. And I just encourage folks to not be fooled into thinking that what happened in 2013 will never happen again, or is the worst flood that could ever happen. So have a plan for the next flood, write it down. And the most resilient communities are just that, they're communities. So talk to your neighbors about all this. Talk to me. Let's keep the conversation going. This is my contact information. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is that my main way of communicating with you all is going to be email from here on out. So email me if you want to get on the email list. And we will post stuff on the website as well. But the most direct way for me to communicate with everyone in the community is going to be via email. If you have questions right now, please put them in the Q&A. As a reminder, you need to bring up the menu in your Zoom application. You can do that by mousing to the bottom of the screen or tapping your screen if you're on a mobile device, and you should see a Q&A box. And then that will allow you to submit a question. We don't seem to have any questions right now. So I'm just gonna hold here, wait a few minutes to make sure people can get their questions in. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can see all my windows a little better.
So we do have a question right now that just came in, and it's from Michael. The question is, why were we not included in this step one design phase? Would you like to tackle that, Kelly, or let me know?
So design phase, I guess the design phase of the study is what you mean. So this is where basically the design of this study was mandated by the SRP recommendation. So as a result of that SRP, that scientific resolution panel, it was determined that STAR 2 was going to be using a 2D study with this split flow analysis. So that was what's been done. And I do want to, now that that has been done, as I say, this is the time to get those comments and concerns included. All right, I see a question from Bill. Do certificates of elevation have an expiration date? No. So your elevation certificate is good. That's the elevation of your first floor and your lowest adjacent grade. Some older elevation certificates were done in an old datum. So basically, the way I understand this is that the way elevation above sea level was measured changed. So if you have a really old elevation certificate, it may be in an old datum and you have to convert it, but the elevations are still good. You can submit them for ALOMA if you want to. You can always also email it to me. I can take a look at it and compare it to the effective base flood elevation and the proposed and see if it might be eligible for ALOMA. Hi, Mike. Okay, so we were assured that we would be included by you and the county commissioners. Why were we not contacted? So basically, this is a FEMA study that was mandated by the results of the scientific resolution panel. And we do want to be transparent in all of this. And the sort of new parts of this, so it's the same hydrology, the same flows are being used, and that new 2020 topography was used. And now is the time for you guys to have your input. So we've been in contact with Kurt Parker, who submitted the original appeal that resulted in that scientific resolution panel discussion. And that's, He is reviewing it. It's a little hard to have input when there's nothing to have input on. So now that we have something for you guys to comment on, this is when we're looking for your comments. Okay, Chris Valentine, I see your question. Are the draft base flood elevations likely to change again? David, I don't know if you want to take that one. I guess if we have comments that change the mapping, they could change. What do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, so the whole, I guess, I guess we're really trying to encourage the getting as much community information as we can to make this product as best as we can. So again, we followed the recommendations that the scientific resolution panel provided, and that basically kind of mandated FEMA and their contractor, which is us, to kind of restudy Lefthand Creek in this manner, using specific things, and that was all. And that was that summary and scope and direction and approach were part of that November 2023 meeting that we had up in Boulder County in person last time. So we really are looking for any information after you review the results that you feel like is not represented accurately from a terrain standpoint, really to improve again. So because we don't want to have to, we want to get these maps to an effective product that can be used by the community and the residents to make better decisions with. And so if it continues to get kind of in this comment loop and due process loop, it just delays the ability for folks to use that effectively. And so that's why we really encourage everyone to review the draft results now and provide that review for us, because we are currently working with Boulder County on their internal review as well. And so we would like to obviously solicit that same level of review from those that are interested in doing so.
Thanks. And Chris, let me know if that didn't answer your question.
Is Chris's question in the Q&A? I'm just trying to.
It's in the answered list now.
Okay.
And Mike,
So that one specifically, yes, there will be changes to base flood elevations from the current preliminary to this draft study. So if you do look at the current preliminary maps that are on the that you can get on FEMA's Map Service Center and compare them to the draft results that Boulder has now posted on their website, there will be differences. Correct. The elevations currently are not on the draft viewer, just the extents of the revised special flood hazard area. So the 1% annual chance and also the floodway are there.
Actually, I believe you can
you get to the
click
BFEs?
The BFEs.
Okay.
If I'm fast enough, I will share my screen and do that. And then, okay, so this is the draft viewer. Like I said, if you click the map layers button, you can expand
Kelly, you're not sharing your screen if you're trying to do that.
Sorry. Okay, now we're good. So this is the draft web viewer. You can click this map layers. So originally it was just showing the legend. You can click the map layers. And if you expand this draft flood hazard zones, you can then add the base flood elevations. So these are the cross sections. So these, as you can see, they're pretty dense. So you may want to zoom in, and it pops up with the elevation for along this line of the base flood elevation line. Those, and to answer Chris's question, these do differ from what's currently effective. If we get further comments that change, something about this changes the mapping, those could change in the future. Otherwise, this will go to final map product development and the preliminary firm. Is that right, David?
That's correct. And as a user for this, since this really kind of illustrates the difference between a 1D and 2D model. So these BFE lines look more like a contour, an elevation contour, than your traditional kind of 1D straight line cross section would look like. So you can see they're a lot denser in spacing. And also they again are more contoured to that, providing that constant elevation across the entire kind of BFE contour. That's what they're called.
Thanks. I'm going to stop sharing again. Okay. And Mike, so I see your questions. I do remember the November 2023 meeting. I remember your questions and the group's questions about maintenance issues along the creek. So basically, your question is, what about continued maintenance of the floodway? And as it is clogged now by growth of willows, cottonwoods, etc. So this is a slightly separate issue from the floodplain mapping. And something we can discuss further, absolutely. Right now, this is private property and it's up to private property owners to maintain that. And we might want to talk with, I know the Watershed Center, what used to be called the Lefthand Watershed Oversight Group, has some funding for wildfire projects and what's called wildfire ready watersheds. Maybe we can work with them, figure out if there's maintenance opportunities there, because those sorts of tree overgrowth is a flooding and a wildfire issue. But it is a separate thing from this floodplain mapping, which is related to the topography, really. And yes, I agree with you that we'll definitely look forward to discussing further on specific property questions and with Kurt Parker and all the rest. I'm going to give it one more minute. I don't see any other questions at the moment. All right, folks, I really appreciate your time this evening. We will get through this together. We might soon have a new floodplain map finally. As always, call me, email me, I'm around. And yeah, I look forward to talking with you all further.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Marta. Thank you, David.
Thanks all.
Yeah, thanks everyone for helping out tonight.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, you can stop recording now.